Welcome to the Strong as Fuck podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Santucci, and join us for some strong conversations. Welcome back to another episode of the Strong as Fuck podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Santucci, and this is obviously a dream to kind of get out here and do this. Obviously, we haven't made $1 off this yet, but it's so much fun to do this because I get to have my friends on, and friend of mine I have on today is one hell of a doctor. She has been my nutritionist and my go-to nutritionist for all my clients and friends for a very long time. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jaime Schehr.
Hello.
How are you?
It's been a long time.
It's been when did we first meet?
2016.
2016, around there.
Yeah. Wow. So like almost 10 years.
And I think you're the only person, correct me if I'm wrong, who has spoken at every strong we've had.
Every single one from the basement.
Yeah,
when there was like 35 people.
I love that. From the basement of the gym with like 30 people to 3,000 people this year.
It's my absolute favorite event.
Yeah. I appreciate
it. Is. I will never not show up if you're asking me. Well, it is my favorite.
Yeah. And she's done it all. She's been the host. Yeah.
That was the worst experience.
Yeah.
It was the worst for me because I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
So that tapped into like some of my deepest, like hardest tasks.
And I'm not just saying this because you're here, but you're so good at public speaking. You're so good. Yeah, you're so comfortable in front of people. Like, I guess because you're talking about this shit you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like that was like hyping a crowd and talking about like stuff that I'm like, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
Put me on stage. Ask me to talk about medicine, lifestyle, health, wellness, behavior, psychology. I'll never shut up. Well,
that's why I gave you Mike. I think Cherno's just a natural.
Thank God.
Beauty.
Otherwise, it would have been like somebody rescue this chick.
Yeah, yeah. He's a hype man. I mean, he's that type.
He's
of guy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
He really he got it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So if you ever invite me back to Strong, let's stay away from the host role.
We'll keep that in mind.
I told my husband, I was like, I don't think I've ever been this tired in my entire life.
Yeah, I think he'd be a great hype man.
Oh,
I just he
absolutely hates public speaking more than anything in this entire world.
But I feel like when he walks in the room, he's going to make everyone feel like they just walked into fucking Cheers.
Yeah. So he should be like the person who like gets people in the room. But he doesn't like the.
I don't want to. Yeah. But he's too charismatic to put behind a desk and have him check people in.
Oh, Strong is the best event. You guys, if you're listening and you haven't come, like it's an absolute must.
So on the lifestyle, health and wellness, I mean, we're starting a new year. It's 2025. And I'd love to get this out as soon as possible because I want to kind of discuss, there is so much noise in the space. I was actually just this weekend down in Austin with a couple buddies, Gabrielle Lyon, her husband, and one of their friends is this guy who lives down in North Carolina, and he's a doctor, and he's a cancer doctor. And he was talking about a lot of the misinformation out there. Like Rogan just had Mel Gibson on, and Mel Gibson was talking about like ivermectin and all these things that you could take to cure cancer. And, you know, I had a bunch of questions about it as well because I was asking him, I go, you hear a lot of these stories of somebody who's like, they have cancer in the US, they move to one of these blue zones, start living off the land, stop eating processed foods, you know, moving around, just living a more natural life. And they kind of kick this cancer. I've had clients before who had bone cancer and different types of cancer. And when they start exercising and moving more, then that improves. No, it doesn't cure it, but like it kind of improves their situation and where they're at that point. You come across so many different walks of life. We've sent you so many different clients, people with stomach issues and cancer issues and all this. What have you seen has helped people the most? And, you know, it's 2025. People are looking for, how do I improve this? There's so much noise out there. What are a couple things that I could do to improve my state at which I'm at right now, whoever it is?
That's a big question. I'm not an oncologist and I don't work with cancer, but I can speak to sort of that idea that we can sell that somebody was able to find a cure or a solution for something that seems maybe out of the ordinary. And I don't know that we can lean on that, right? Because you can always look at Steve Jobs, right? I mean,
got all the money in the
world, all the resources, everything he could have had, And unfortunately, he wasn't able to survive cancer. And then you'll meet people who survive the rarest, deadliest, of cancers. And I think that there's something to be said for the N of 1. And what that means is that although we look at studies and we look at trends and we look at data and we look at how most people would fare in certain situations, certain diseases, medications, etc., the N of 1 is the experience of one person. It holds space for the fact that sometimes some people are just going to have a different result. And we shouldn't dismiss that result, and we shouldn't say that that's not true, but we also have to be careful to then not spread that as the standard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that then brings me back to the individuality of each one of us. I think it's really important that we all have a responsibility to things that are somewhat safe or safety. But I also think it's important for us to say, I don't know that I always want to be treated inside the box. I don't know that I have to have the exact same thing that everybody next to me has. Now, when you think of medicine as a whole, we tend to be stuck in this echo chamber in the fitness and wellness space, right? Because we think that everybody has what we have and is in the same mentality. But as you know, and as I know, like think about people in your family. Not everybody has that mentality. And when we think about medicine and how medicine is communicated and portrayed, a lot of times it's not for the people that are healthier or in the health and wellness space. It's for the larger population. So we all kind of get stuck in what we think we experience and what we know. And I always say, you have to remember that your experience is the first and the most important. And then we can start to think about, what have other people done? Or why is this trending? Or why is this gaining popularity? Right? One of the most brilliant therapists I've ever spoken with told me years ago, the wildest stories, even like the National Enquirer, they started off of a whisper of truth. They are not true now where they are, but they started there, right? And I think about that often. If someone comes in and they're like, water makes me feel sick. It's highly unlikely, but let me not dismiss it. Because what if, maybe, how come, right? So to bring that full circle to sort of what can our wellness goals be around 2025, and prior to hitting record, you and I were just talking about how we're so influenced and easily, pushed into thinking that we need to look or feel a certain way. I would love to see people go back to the self, to turn inwards. How do I feel? What do I need? Where am I in this journey? And I think if we can get clarity around that, we're going to stop being so confused by all the noise.
I totally agree with that, because I had just watched this video on manifestation and what you could do to build out the best 2025. And it gives you real tactical ideas as to what you should be doing, writing these things down and making them come to life. And one of the things was to create a mood board of things that you want to happen. And I started to, kind of take pictures off the internet. I was on Pinterest. I'm looking for stuff. And all the things that we're told that we should want.
Yeah.
When I really look inside and I'm like, I don't really want that. Like, people are like, you don't want a nice house? And I'm like, for me, I don't want a lot of shit. I don't want all these things. I don't want to have to worry about a lawn. I was just on the phone with Jake Steinfeld 2 days ago, and I didn't know this until he told me his house burnt down in the Palisades. Wow. And he's like, I lost everything. And he's the don't quit guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, he owns that trademark. And he's like, Ken, he goes, I took the plaque off the wall, and it's this poem that he got when he was like in 8th grade or whatever. And he's like, I had it, I put it in my bag, and then I took it out of my bag and put it back on the wall. He's like, because I knew that I wasn't going to quit, and this is where everything started, and everything burned. He's like, but I have this feeling of being lighter. Wow. And I was like, I felt that way too. Like, he had all these things and all this attachment to all this stuff in the past. And he's like, I just feel like I've lost everything I've ever had, but I just feel like I can move now. And I felt that way. And I was talking about this the other day. I had felt that way like 10, 12 years ago. I went through a transition. I had lost my old gym. I was going through a lawsuit, and I was basically living out of my car, and I had 2 bags in the back seat of my car. And I operated like that for about a year and a half, living out of my car. And there was an essence of like, all right, I could go anywhere. I could do anything. Like there's nothing grounding me or holding me down. So when I started to do this, I started to put pictures of like different places I'd want to visit. And just having my apartment here, I don't need all this shit. And I think a lot of people are like, I need a house and I need, kids. And it's like, yeah, eventually I'd love to have kids. Sure. But at the same time, do I need that right now? No. Do I need to have it by 45 or 50? When it happens, it happens. I think when you know. And I think going inside and trying to see what you really want is just so much more important than being like, oh, this guy's got this. Well, I need that too.
Sure. It is. It's looking at what it is for you, right? The flip of that might be somebody out there whose dream and goal is to have a family and children, but they're putting all their time and effort into their job.
Yeah.
They may need to be the person who says, if I don't put time into my life, I'm not going to find the family and the kids, and then slow down at work. You're saying the opposite. I'm filled by my connections to people. I'm filled by my job. I'm filled by my life. Like you just explained exactly that. It's looking to say, what is it that is truly going to give me that sense of health and wellness? Not last year, the year before, you had Jim Quick at Strong, right? And a quote that I keep going back to for him, and I'm going to butcher it, this isn't exactly, is, you can have all the money, all the cars, all the fancy things, but the real flex is having freedom. The real flex is having your health. The real wealth is the ability to make choices. And if you're not healthy, you can't make them. And if you tie yourself into things that, don't feel good, you can't make them. And I think that speaks to what you just said. For some people, the house and the family is what gives them that sense of freedom and
comfort,
and complete them. And for you, it would feel like something you were carrying in this moment.
Yeah, and definitely you could always change, right?
Oh,
and
please, I hope we all always change.
Yeah, and people fear the change, but because we're looking at the past or we're looking at the future, I think enjoying the right now, the day to day, is so important. I've been trying to do that more and more. Like, when I get up and I'm like, all right, I got to do this, I got to do that. And I'm like, but right now I can go get a cup of coffee, walk to work, and just enjoy the next couple hours and not have to worry about it. Because I think when you start to have to and you have 2 kids, you have a husband, you have a full-time job, you have a business, like there's so much serious shit on your plate, and you probably never get a chance to really like step back and just be like, all right.
But I think that's the very reason why people don't feel well. I think what you just said is why we can't often figure out what is it that's not making me feel good, because we don't step back and say, did I eat today? We don't step back and say, did I have time to go to the bathroom this morning? We don't step back and say, did I get enough sleep, right? We just go and we go and we go. And then we turn around and we're like, I think my cortisol's high and it's making me gain weight in my belly. And it's like, well, maybe, but are we going to step back and actually look at the things that are going to matter?
I forget whose book it was. Oh, I was just reading, what the hell is Winning? Who is that? Who wrote that book? He was Michael Jordan's coach.
What? Oh, okay.
Yes. Michael Jordan's coach. I forget his name. Anyway. Yeah. So
none of us can remember.
Nobody. Yeah. He trained Kobe. He trained Michael Jordan, and he had talked about, in the book, he's talking about how there was this British cycling team and they never won anything. Tim Grover. And he talks about how they hadn't won a race in quite some time, and they brought in this guy who's a specialist on habits, and he broke things down to like the pillows they were sleeping on, the dust in their bike wheels, and they won the next like 6 out of 7 champions. So don't quote me on all that, but like it's something along those lines when you start to break down like the little things in your life that you do so often on a daily basis that we overlook. Just like you were saying, the sleep, the enjoying that cup of coffee, those 15 or 20 minutes that you have to yourself that could really set your day apart from being a good day or a great day.
We lose them because we get distracted, right? Look at, every single person listening to this podcast right now, if they're if they're not currently scrolling, they've been at some point in their life where like we lose our sense of presence to this idea of scrolling and looking and seeing. And your question in the beginning was like, you know, you're out in Texas and there's this conversation around the space being so crowded with noise, and how do people get to a place of like knowing what is truth, what is real, what is healthy, what is propaganda. And part of that, I think, comes from, and you can argue all the politics and all the, you know, the ways in that we silence and promote things. But I do think we give up a lot of our power and our truth by looking outside and not stopping and doing exactly what you just said, which is like, if I actually enjoy this cup of coffee in this moment, maybe I won't feel like I need to have 3 glasses of water before it or after it because some influencer told me to, and my stomach's going to have too much water, and then I'm not going to feel good. Instead, I'm just going to drink my coffee and feel good.
Yeah. I'm always very confident and excited to send somebody to you. I just sent my best friend.
Yes, you did. And I haven't met him yet, but.
And I'm hoping you can help him out, because you had said something very profound and something that I live by a lot. You know, I kind of share with everyone, is you had said years ago that most people who suffer from either weight loss or weight gain, like either being heavy or too thin, tends to be more emotional than it is anything else. And I really do lean into that a lot when I talk to people about the way they feel and the way they look.
Yeah.
Because for myself, growing up, it was always this source of like, if we were going to eat, it was like, all right, my dad's going to be in a good mood. Everybody's going to be relaxed. So I look forward to that. And in an Italian household, it's like, it's always a celebration. So it always meant a good time. So if I'm eating, it means that we're having a good time.
You connected that emotion to that experience.
Yeah.
I believe that to be true. I believe that food is social, it's emotional, it's cultural, it's experience, it's reward, it's punishment. It
allows us to gather around something.
It has so much weight, and I use that word intentionally, that when we experience changes in our body, whether it's obesity or anorexia, or gaining weight, losing weight, underweight, overweight, or we experience anything around food that is connected to our health and our wellness, any disease or illness that impacts our food, I think most people are going to experience something that is also then emotional, something that is connected to who they are, their values, their memories. And if we don't address that, then you're not taking the whole picture, right? And I'll use a GLP as an example. Everyone's, putting Ozempic in their water. And that's fine. I'm not anti or pro. I think the importance is that we're not then talking about, hey, all those things that you've connected to food, all of those moments, all of those joys, all of that negative and positive experience, the shame, the joy, the proud, we have to do something with it. It doesn't disappear, right? You talk often about your experience being bigger. You've had an incredible physique for 10 years now since I've met you. I don't think you've ever forgotten the feeling of what it was like to be in a bigger body. Imagine you ignored that. Imagine you never addressed that. What happens when we don't deal with things, right?
Well, what I like about what you do is you kind of take it from a holistic approach, right? You have there's the psychological aspect, and then there's the biological aspect, and like what's going on with those two things. What do you find to be the most helpful for people because just like we said, I mean, it's 99% of people are suffering from this emotional side of it. How do you kind of walk us through how you kind of get people over that hump generally?
I don't know that I get them over it. I think I bring them to it, and then we have the choice, right? So I was working with a woman last night, and she has lost a bunch of weight. She's really, in a space where she's she's big goals of being in the FBI and has to pass the fitness test. Long story short, she's dealt with being 100 pounds overweight for a very long time. And we're talking, and she's lost some weight, and she's really sort of leaning into this idea that she's now in a space that she's never been before. And as we got into the conversation, we were talking a little bit more about the food. It came to light that maybe some of the habits that she has around eating right now are not the best because they're in the service of others, right? So she's not giving herself what she needs because people in her family need other things. And it's not a financial thing, but like she wants to experience food with so-and-so. So she's eating things that she would not otherwise eat. She doesn't want to miss out on a joy. So she has alcohol when she wouldn't really want to drink it because somebody else in the family, that's what they, right? And we had to really dig deep into what happens when we lose our own sense of self. And she's giving up her power to please and be there for other people. And it was just a conversation. All I said was, what if we were able to still enjoy those moments with those people and not feel like we had to give part of you to them? What if we could hold that part of you as the healthy part and you can still engage in those, right? And it's not that I did anything different with her than I would with other people. I just held the space for us to talk about it, right? Instead of being like, all right, cottage cheese and this many grams of protein and this many grams of fat and, make sure you're drinking water. We talked about those things and we talked about the supplements and we talked about her medications. But before I got off the phone with her, I said, but really the most important thing is, can we talk about you for a second? Can we talk about why this is happening and this is happening and this is not happening?
Yeah.
And just think about that, right? At what point do you give up your power? Do you give up your opportunity to give up part of yourself because you're worried about how it's going to make other people feel?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just needed to invite the conversation.
And I think that kind of puts you down this spiral of, all right, well, now I'm unhappy, so now I'll eat because of this. And yeah. And I like that approach to it. I had one of my brother's friends who's severely overweight now. And he's like 51, 52 years old. He started working out with us last week. And I saw him a couple times. He's like, dude, I want to overhaul everything. He's like, I want to start working out every day. And I go, relax. You're going from doing 0 to telling me you want to do everything that even took me 10 years to accomplish.
Yes.
I go, so what I want you to do is, and I told him, I was like, I'll set you up with because he's like, get me a good nutritionist. And I go, all right, but if I set you up with somebody, they're going to dive into your psychology just as much as we're going to dive into your diet. I go, but the problem is, because he's like, well, just tell me what to eat. I go, you know what to eat.
Of course
I don't
you
need to tell you to stop.
And you can buy that for $5.99 online.
Exactly. And
plug your numbers in and there you go.
And I said, I go, should you have a bagel tomorrow morning? No. Okay, then don't eat that again. And then should you crush 12 beers with my brother tonight? Probably not. Okay, good. Then let's not do that. You know all that, but you're doing it anyway. So we need to get to the root of why you're doing that and why you feel like you need to do that. Because for me, I used to feel the pressure of going out with people and being like, oh, we got to drink and we got to hang out and eat all this shit. And I could go out with people now, and I always thought that was awkward. I used to look down on people and shit on people who were going out and be like, I'm not touching that. I don't want to drink. I don't do this. And I'm like, what a fucking lame idiot. Now I'm that person. I'll go out with people.
Well, what was it that changed that? It was some sense of awareness within you that allowed you to release that judgment and that freedom.
Well, I think for me, I was just like, all right, I know to be the best version of me, I have to put myself above everybody else. And I used to think of that as me being selfish. Like when everybody says, oh, put yourself above everybody else. It's not selfish. It's how could I show up best for everybody else? And that best for me is me being this guy. And now it becomes addictive for everyone else to live a better life, because I know that everyone will live a better life if they start tweaking these little things. So if I inspire somebody by doing the things that I don't really want to do, and then it gets them to do it, then they'll start to see the light as well and be like, all right, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Yeah. It takes maturity. It takes growth. It takes, right? Like you couldn't do that 10 years ago because also listen, we're all subject to feeling insecure. Okay. I don't know I haven't met anyone who isn't. Like there was a part of you that probably felt like they're going to think that I'm lame. They're going to judge me. They're not going to want to hang out with me. And then you get to a point where you're like, I want to feel my best, or I want, and I think the same for health, right? Like when we're scrolling, I'll go back to, social media, I'll scroll and I'll look at something and I'll be like, oh, wow, this cream really can get rid of wrinkles in 3 minutes. And I'll catch myself almost down the rabbit hole. And then I'll be like, hold on a second. Is that what I really need right now?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, can we pause? Whether it's buying the bagel, having the 12 beers, spending money on an expensive wrinkle cream that probably doesn't work. Like, can we pause? I ask myself 100 times a day, what do I need in this moment? I pause all the time. I could be mid-sentence with you and just think, wait, what is it that I want to say? What do I need in this moment so that we can be present?
Yeah, I think it's so hard for a lot of people. But yeah, I heard a quote years ago, and I'm going to probably butcher it, but it was like when you're in your teens and 20s, you think everybody cares and you care so much. And then you get to your 30s and you're like, you stop caring a little bit. By the time you hit your 40s, you're just like, no one cares and I care less than they do. So you just
like the most true thing ever.
Right? Because you get to this point. I can't even imagine where I'm going to be when I hit 50. That's why I meet so many angry old guys, because they're like, I just don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. But like, I'm at that point where people are like, oh, well, what do you, the other night I'm leaving, I left jujitsu. It was like 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like, this is great. I'm going to go home. I'm going to sit on my couch and eat watermelon and steak. And it's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
And I used to think like, oh, I got to go out every night.
Yep.
When I was working at Solace, it's like every night of the week, we'd all go out to drinks. We'd all go out for food. And it was like, I was burning the candle at both ends. Yeah. And now I'm just like, I do what I want to do. I don't get, and if somebody wants to come along for that ride, awesome. If they don't, fuck off. I don't even give a shit.
Right. But there's the difference in decades, right? So when I work with someone who's 20, I'm not saying don't care what other people think, because I know what 20s is like, right? Instead, I'm saying, okay, so you're 20 years old, you're going to go out drinking, you're going to not have enough sleep. So what are the things that we can do that help mitigate that? What are the things that we can do? Can we put in one night a week where you might stay home and the other 6 is where you go out? Because you have to meet people where they are, right? To the point of your brother's best friend, like, you jump on the bandwagon and you want to just go like full force, right? And I always talk about a pendulum, and we swing from one end of the pendulum to the other. Consistency is what wins. It wins every single time. It's going to win every race. And if instead of going from either side of the pendulum, if we can stay in the middle and we can be consistent, you're going to hit your goals, whether it's for gut health or hormone health or weight management or better sleep or whatever it is. And I think when, if I'm working with a 20-year-old, and I know you train people of all different ages, I know that I can't give them the same expectations of a 40-year-old who I can say, go out one night a week if you even want to. For the 20-year-old, I have to say, stay home one night a week.
Yeah.
But you know what that is? That's individuality. That's not looking at what someone else is doing. It's looking at what that person is doing. You don't write the same training protocol for every person that walks in the gym.
Yeah. Well, I think for you, just like for me, I need people to show up and be consistent and work out. But you must deal with so many people who feel the need that they have to lie to you about like what they've eaten and what they've done.
Yeah.
Like that would be frustrating, because I deal with it. I'm not a nutritionist. That's not what I do. But like when I ask people, I'm like, oh, so, how's your diet? Go, oh, great. I've been doing great. And it's like, you're heavier than you were. Yeah. So clearly you're not.
I think the way I manage that is really reminding people that this is for them. It's not for me.
Yeah.
Right. What I eat in a day makes no fucking difference for what you eat.
Is that why you don't share it a lot?
Of course I don't share it. But what do you eat in a day? I'm like, I could tell you, but how the hell is that going to help you?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And if it's going to inspire you, then I can just tell you how to make the recipe I made. You don't need to know what it is in a day, right? So the way I get around that is really staying true to the other person, reminding them that this is for them. You can lie to me all day. Yeah. At the end of the day, if we're going to be, really cheeky about it, like, I'm still making my money.
Yeah.
And leaving, like, I'm still here and you're still paying for the visit. And if you don't get anything out of it because you're lying, that's on you.
That's stupid. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I would never say it that way because that's not how I feel. But it gets the point across that, like, if someone's going to be not truthful and not consistent, instead of being like, bro, I can't work with you, you're not consistent, I'm probably going to go in a little deeper and say, I'm going to challenge you as what you feel so bad about. Why do you feel so bad about yourself or your habits that you don't want to show up for yourself? Let's talk about you for a second. I don't care what you ate. I don't care what time you went to bed. I don't care how many beers you drank. Let's go a little deeper. Is this from your 6-year-old self? Is this when you were 16? Like, why is it so hard for you to show up for you? Where do you not value that?
Yeah.
And that usually turns it around.
Do you think it's more like shame or embarrassment that like a lot of people don't want to share some of that stuff with you? Because I mean, my mom's a perfect example, right? When I say to her, I'm like, we'll go out to eat. We all went out to eat one day after the gym, and we went to the diner, and it was my mom, Christy, my nephews, a couple people from the gym. And she's like, oh, I don't want anything. I go, I've been with you since this morning. Like I had stayed at her house. I go, you haven't eaten anything. I don't want anything. I go, yeah, but you should eat something. We went to the gym, and she'll go home at night. And I know for a fact that she's eating like shit. She'd probably crush a bag of potato chips or something. And I'm like, I'm trying to understand for her because I want her to succeed. And I get really frustrated, and I'm probably not the best at handling these situations.
As Christy laughed from the background.
But I said, I go, you should eat now. Okay, what do you want me to eat? I go, what do you want to eat? And it's just like this back and forth. But I almost feel like she doesn't want to eat because she's shamed at eating in a group. But like at home, and I know this for a fact because I've had plenty of clients who will go home and like eat in the closet or,
sure,
eat by themselves.
It's a real thing. I see it all the time.
Yeah. So what is that? Like, explain that.
Underneath a lot of this is pain, right? Underneath a lot of the shame and the guilt is pain. What that might feel like to not have those things if they comfort you. What that might feel like to rip that Band-Aid off and not have that nurture. Maybe this is something they're used to having. We can't know what everybody's experiencing, but behind the behavior is usually something much bigger. And not everybody is ready to take those things on. If I was working with your mother, I might say to her, listen, if you're not ready to overhaul your diet, we don't have to. Let's find one small habit that's going to help you be a healthier version of you, even if you still eat at night, right? If she's feeling shame eating in front of you, maybe it's because she wants you to be proud of her. And maybe she feels embarrassed choosing things in front of her son, who's this epitome of health and wellness. And she doesn't want to feel that because she wants you to be proud of her. And you're like, Ma, I know you're hungry. And she's like, I'd rather not eat than to feel what it feels like to not make my son happy. And you might turn around and say, Mom, I'm not going to be unhappy with you. You're not embarrassing me. But that's how you feel. How she feels is embarrassed to make those decisions.
Yeah.
And you're not in her skin, right? So instead of saying, Mom, I know you're hungry, the language might be, Mom, I want you to do what makes you feel good. If eating right now isn't going to make you feel good, then just have some water and maybe, when you get home, eat something.
I almost feel bad in a way because I'm like, everyone else is eating. You're going to sit there and not eat? Like there's another guy who comes to the gym who comes out to eat with us, and Christy always gets annoyed when he comes out to eat with us because we'll go somewhere nice and he'll just sit there and he won't eat anything. And he's always been a bigger guy. And
right. But Kenny, 5 minutes ago, we were talking about how you used to get annoyed when people would go out and not drink, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, and then now I could just go out and sit there, and those people at the table might still be like, well, why isn't he having a drink with us anymore? We've always had drinks together, right? It's kind of the same thing, except your motivation is different. Your mother might not want to have breakfast at the table with all these people after the gym because she feels shame in her own self around her decisions. And I don't know your mother. I'm just hypothetically saying, if that's the case, forcing her to eat isn't going to make her feel better.
Do you feel that a lot of this stuff stems from, do you see it stem a lot more from childhood than it does from current?
Always. I think our current climate brings these issues to the table a lot quicker and with more tenacity than ever before, right? We're quick to call people out, and everything's a trend and everyone's sort of on things. So there's more of like a fraternity or a sorority around what we should or shouldn't be doing more than ever before because we didn't have social media. But I do think that, we have patterns, we have habits. I see this in health, and I see this in food, and I see this in nutrition all the time. And I think my approach that's different is addressing that alongside, right? If we're talking about gut health, we can talk about stool tests. We can talk about anti-inflammatory diet. I can tell you to take some glutamine and get off of gluten and add in fermentable foods and make sure that you're not sensitive to dairy. We can tackle all those things. But what's going to make it different is that we're also going to talk about how your neurotransmitters and your stress hormones, how they affect your gut. And what can we do around those to help you feel a little bit better
Yeah.
when you eat, right? It's like a whole body approach.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I've always struggled with the idea of like looking at myself and I'm like, oh, why don't I look like this person? Why don't I look like that person? And I know a lot of people deal with that.
All of us do.
Yeah.
I've yet to meet anyone who doesn't in some way see things outside of themselves.
Yeah. And I think that stems a lot from childhood as well.
We're siblings and teams and schools and parents and parental love and all of that.
Yeah. What do you think the current administration, not to dive too far into politics, but all the RFK stuff, right? I think there's a lot of people, especially in the world that I think we both kind of float in, with health and wellness and looking to improve people's way of life. And, on the RFK side, like what he's doing and what he's trying to implement. What are your thoughts on all that?
I think that we've gotten really far from the shore in understanding health in this country.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we have politicized what wellness is from a financial perspective, right? We can lobby to get the authority to say something's healthy even when we know it's not.
Mm-hmm.
We can pay enough money to get our drugs approved, our foods approved, even though we might know that there's risk and harm. Other countries don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for as long as we are allowed to buy the opinion of, and as long as money is allowed in the decisionary process around what is healthy and what is well, we can't get to a place where the intention is true health. I don't think we should be allowed to buy the opinion of a politician on any side of the table when it comes to policies around food or a drug.
Yeah. Well, a lot of what he's trying to, that red dye and all this, I think that's what's happened in the past. And I think that's where we kind of went wrong. And I would 50s, 60s, I'm guessing, where we started.
This is one example of thousands and thousands of where companies were able to continue to and or start to use something because they funded enough of the pocket.
Exactly. And I know you've been to Italy a couple times. I've been there. I was there for a week 2 years ago. I ate pasta. I ate a ton of shit I would never even touch here. I drank a bottle of wine with a buddy of mine. And then we went to the gym afterwards and I felt great.
Yeah.
I didn't gain a pound. And I'm like, how have we come so far in this country that we can't even? Because
you can buy your way in.
Yeah.
And as long as you can financially sway the lobbyists to make the decisions, right? The fact that, Kellogg's, if we're going to call them out for the red, can give enough money, or how about this is a great example. There was a little small company called Right Rice, and they came out with like an alternative to rice. It didn't even have rice in it. But the rice board decided that we got to shut them down because they're too similar to rice, but they're healthier, and we don't want that. So there was enough money funded through the rice board to make this little company go away.
Isn't it crazy that we have a rice board in this country?
Right. And I'm making a very complicated story much smaller.
Yeah.
But there's this idea that we can take our power and our money and we can decide that's more important than what is healthy.
Yeah.
So
but we don't even have the choice to if I wanted to buy the exact same meal I had in Italy here or the exact same bottle of wine here, I can't. Because just for them to import it, they were like, well, we got to put our shit in it so we can make our money off of it.
Absolutely. And so when you ask me about what I think about politics, I think that the onus is on the insurance companies to really start to change medicine, because insurance companies are the ones who are dictating how health is being distributed, meaning doctors have 10 minutes with their patients. They're not covering this, they're not covering that. And I say this all the time. Wellness is an investment, right? You have home insurance in the case of an emergency. If there's a flood, if there's a fire, if there's an emergency, that's when you ask your home insurance to come in and support you. You don't ask your home insurance to give you money when you want a new rug, when you want to paint the walls, when you want to make things look or feel nicer.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to wellness, we've gotten to a place now where we can't get even the catastrophic things in our health covered by our insurance, right? And our insurance is so expensive, so people don't have it. And then the alternative answers are also expensive. So we now have to rethink this paradigm. We have to think about wellness and health and the things that we choose as an investment. And we have to think about our health insurance as an expense. And illness is expensive. And if we start to separate that, we can say, okay, well, now we can force the insurance companies to come to the table with an option for wellness, because that's what people need and want to choose. In politics, I hope that things are shifting. But and I hope that we have enough frustrations, but I think we're still such a small community of people who want to see these things changed. And in this country, I also think that there's a much bigger community who's
a lot more money.
Pretty okay with the way things are right now.
I mean, listen, I think it's a very controversial topic, and I'm not going to share my opinions either way on, the whole Luigi issue. But I think
made for a good show, though.
Right?
That's someone's writing the script on that.
I can't wait to watch that Netflix special. That's going to be interesting. But I think there is a lot of frustration amongst people with that. I just got my bill today, right? I said to Chrissy, I go, is this what I pay a month for insurance? I pay $800 a month. Now, Dr. K is my doctor. I pay her, and I rather pay her. So I should have the option to not pay this $800. But if I don't have any type of insurance, then God forbid something happens.
Your illness insurance. What happens if you drop a weight on your foot and you need surgery? God forbid, right? If you think about those separately, will you still feel the same way?
Yeah. But I think it's just annoying that I'm paying for this and I'm paying into this constantly. And I don't even use any of the doctors in my network because and they make it such a pain in the ass. Like, oh, go see this guy and he could refer you to a specialist.
Right. But imagine that your insurance, your health insurance was $300 a month, and it was disaster insurance in case you need to go to the hospital and get right. This is how it is in other countries.
Yeah.
And then you took that other $500 and you put it towards your wellness, and you put it towards your doctor. Yes. You put it right. That would be a space where you would maybe feel less animosity, because you have to have something that protects you in case of an emergency. But also you want a choice.
And what I tell people a lot, just from firsthand experience, right? And anytime I talk about the way I feel about something, it's always like, well, this happened to my family or this happened to me. And my father, he had a heart attack in his 50s. If you asked him, he never had one.
Very old school.
Yeah. And then like in his early 60s. And then he had a stroke when he was 69. And he was in the hospital for 8 months or so. Now, my father was one of these people who never went to the doctor.
Yep.
Never, got any type of checkup or anything. When he was in the hospital, 4 or 5 months in, they call my mom and they're like, well, his insurance is running out. And I'm like, hold on. You're going to tell me this guy's 69 years old. He's been paying his insurance his whole life. He was a Marine, then he was a cop. So he's always had like pretty good insurance. And I go, how is he running out the last 8 months of his fucking life? How is this possible? That he never used it. I'm pretty sure I was around for the last 40 years. And I go, how is this possible that he's run out of insurance? And when we were looking for homes for him, it was like $12,000 a month, $13,000.
But this is all because of the financial costs of people being paid a lot of money behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And right? Like, it's not.
Well, I just don't think that a CEO of any of these companies, right, especially politicians, you're a public servant. You work for the people. Why are you worth $400 million? Why is this one person worth, like, I think, and I'm not, my brother always says, oh, you're a communist. I'm like, I'm not a communist. I'm saying the fact, I don't think somebody should be worth that much money because they get this job as a CEO or something in this company. Like, you make more than professional athletes. You make more than, somebody with a talent to work for these companies, and everyone else underneath you is suffering. Like, I don't even know how these fucking people sleep at night.
I think, I don't think you can meet anybody on the street who hasn't had an experience in health care that hasn't gone awry, right? Everyone you meet is going to say, oh, my dentist costs this. The system is broken. So when someone says, well, what do you think about the current climate in politics? I hope that somebody can come in and change this.
Anybody. Yeah, I don't give a fuck who it is.
We have seen multiple people try. We have seen things get worse. We have seen things get better. Some things improve, some things don't, right? Some rights are taken away, some rights are added. It's not an easy conversation to have because it's so big. But what we can do is we can all go back to the beginning of the conversation, which is like, if we're able to have agency over our own selves and our health, and we can work towards that. And I realize that is a very privileged thing for me to say because not everybody has that. But in the world that we're talking about, that's where we are. If we can start to have a voice around that, I think that the administration now, I think the efforts to improve our health, I think they're going to continue. I don't think it's going to happen quickly, and I don't think it's going to happen overnight. But the goal is that we can get more towards a space where people can choose health instead of choosing illness.
Yeah, I agree. I think just bringing it to light, as horrible as COVID was and as miserable as that
it
time
opened
was,
up a lot of boxes.
Well, I think it educated the general public on what they should be doing on a daily basis. You'll hear me say this 1,001 times on the show if anybody listens consistently, is that, I look at health and wellness as, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, going to the gym.
Getting air.
Yeah, those things have to happen on a daily basis. There needs to be some movement in your life. And then the other day, my buddy who I train every day, we work out together, he sends me a video of this bodega by his apartment, and it's just like tasty cakes and bagged little snacks and all this shit. And he goes, you walk in here, he goes, you can't eat any of this shit.
Nope, none of it.
Horrible.
Maybe there's a bag of almonds.
But there are stores full of shit that people shouldn't be eating.
In the neighborhoods that have the
worst.
least access to healthy foods. Yeah. I mean, we're broken.
Yeah.
The system is broken, right? And I hate that. But I also think we can get stuck there. And if we get stuck there, we can't go anywhere. We can't grow when we're stuck, right? So instead, I want everyone listening to say, okay, the system is broken. But instead of going into my doctor and being mad at my doctor for not ordering my vitamin D, I can take agency over that. I can figure out, what is the conversation I need to have with my doctor? Instead of being like, why won't you order my vitamin D? Are you the person who's going to help me do this? Can I do this on my own? Right? We have to start to say, and not be influenced, but be informed. I say that a lot too, because I think, we live in a tough climate. Like you just said you were with Gabrielle Lyon, right? Mm-hmm. Friend, phenomenal woman. Love what she's talking about. She's pushing medicine to see that we've underfed people with protein for years and years and years. And the recommendations are abysmal around protein. But for anyone listening, if you can't hit 30 grams of protein at each meal, like she recommends, it doesn't mean you're a failure. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can hit 15. Yeah. Maybe 15 is more than the 5 you were hitting with your tasty cake. Mm-hmm. Or I don't even think it has that many.
Just small increments.
Exactly. Like it's so we have to have people at the helm who are saying these things. But you listening doesn't mean that if you don't do that, you're not good enough. Goes back to the shame, right? Mm-hmm. If your mother doesn't order a salad at brunch with Kenny, it doesn't mean she's not good enough. What if she just got a piece of toast, right? So like, what if we all step back and say, I can't do all of that, but what if I could, right? When someone comes like, I want to train for a marathon. I'm like, great. Let's talk about mile 1. You're so busy about mile 20. Like, Can you run mile 1? And the other thing I say to people all the time, to go back to the 2025 goals and sort of, pull it together, is like, it isn't what you do on one day. It's what you do every day that matters, most days, right? What am I going to do, Dr. Jaime? It's my birthday and I want to have cake. Eat the damn cake, right? You haven't seen your buddies in 20 years. They want to go out and have beers with you. If you're not sober, have a beer with them. But it's what we do. It's the small things that we do most days. It's showing up at the gym most days. You don't make it there one day because you had somewhere to go, but you went all other 6 days. That's going to make the difference, because you know what that is? It's consistency. Mm-hmm. And what is consistency? It wins.
How do you separate, kind of taking that? And I like that approach. I know you've always been an advocate of that. Hey, it's your birthday, have some cake. When do you start to help people draw the line of being like, okay, now it's time to buckle in and do the hard shit. Because I'm a big component. There's a lot of times I don't want to do certain things. Most mornings I don't want to get up at 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. But I know if I get up that it's going to make my day infinitely better. I know that me walking here rather than taking an Uber is the better move. I'm getting steps in. I just feel better. There's so much good on the other side of hard shit.
I'm going to give you two answers for that. The first, you asked, when do you help people, just buckle up or buckle and dive in, whatever. Mm-hmm. First, you have to know who you're helping, right? Mm-hmm. There's two types of people. Let's just bring this to like cookies. There's the person who, if there's a package of cookies in their kitchen, they're eating the whole damn package, right? And then there's the other person who wants to have one cookie, and if they feel like they can't and they have no cookies, then they're constantly looking for something else. They're going to look for something and look for something, whereas they should have just had the one cookie. Right?
Yeah.
There's different personalities. Know your personality, because that's where you're going to be the most successful. I eat a little tiny bit of ice cream every single night of my life. I swear to it. I post about it all the time. It's not like protein high ice cream. It's straight up Turkey Hill, mint chip, full of colors and dyes and shit. It's shit. Okay. It's terrible. Yeah. Judge me. And I have this tiny little spoon of ice cream every single night. I don't need more than that. I don't need a bowl. I don't need a lot. But that little spoon of ice cream is some sort of nurture and turn off signal for me. The day is over, right? I have my little scoop of ice cream. I put it away and I'm good. If I don't have that, I'm looking around. I'm looking for something that's going to close my day. Something that's going to nurture me. It's something that's not going to fill me. I know that little bit, the risk or the harm is nothing.
Yeah.
Compared to how it feels when I feel like I feel like I haven't finished the day. I want something sweet, right? And it's not going to nurture me. While my best friend, if that was in her house, she's eating the whole damn container every night because she's a different personality around it. Know who you are. Pay attention to who you are. Pay attention to your patterns. Pay attention to your habits, because that's the information that's going to make the decision around how and what you should or shouldn't do. The second part of that, I say this to my girls all the time. I have two little girls. They're tweens. They're like my favorite thing in the world. And they bitch and moan like every kid does. Why do I have to get up? Or why do I have to do my homework? And I tell them, because we can do hard things. I feel sad for the day we can't.
Yeah, I like
but
that.
We can. And for as long as we can, we will. And they get it. They get it now, right? We can do hard things. And then sometimes there's times when we can't, if they're sick, or right? And I'll say, oh man, these are the times that stink. We don't get to do those hard things that make us feel good every day. Mm-hmm. Because it's perspective, right? How long did it take you to shift the perspective around? Instead of going out and feeling like the person who's not drinking is the loser.
Yeah.
You're now like, I feel so good not drinking.
It does take a long time. And I think it wasn't like something I set out to do. It was just like
perspective shift.
Yeah. You just get to this level of maturity, if
awareness.
you want to call it that, or awareness. Yeah.
You had to move things a little bit at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You had to take steps to get there. You didn't get to that mile by just deciding you weren't going to be the person who drank. You got there, right? And like, that's what I tell everybody when I work with them. I will give you the grams of protein, but that's useless if I can't help you understand how to connect yourself to them.
What's your thoughts on, because so many people are like, I want to get a DEXA scan. I want to get an in-body scan. I want to know how much body fat and muscle tissue I have. For me, a lot of my clients are like, oh, do you have a scale here? And I tell them, I do have a scale at the gym. But I tell most people no, because I think a lot of people still, as much information is out there, I still think people, because I do jujitsu. There are days where I have to weigh a certain amount to compete. That's the only time I look at the scale. But my weight, even if I do everything, I mean, she'll tell you, I did a tournament in Vegas, and the night before the tournament, I had a full steak. And people are like, you're going to eat the night before? I'm like, yeah, because I need the protein.
Yeah.
I weighed in lighter the next day than I did the night before. And people are like, oh, when I wrestled in high school and college, it was like, starve yourself to the last possible minute. and you'll lose the weight. But in reality, it's like I could still have certain things that'll keep me nourished and still lose weight. So I tell people the scale's going to fluctuate so much. Don't get so obsessed with the scale. And I think a lot of people look to nutritionists being like, I want my body fat to come down. I want to lose weight. I need this as the tool to let me know where I'm at.
I don't have an opinion either way. I'm going to say it depends because I think it does, right? When I met you 10 years ago, if you had that steak before your tournament, you would have weighed more the next day because your testosterone was on the floor.
Yeah.
It's the fact that you have regulated hormones now that allows your body to operate in the healthy, normal, if we'll use the word normal way. 10 years ago, that steak would have put 3 pounds on you.
Yeah.
Today, that steak makes you lose weight because your body has enough hormones to metabolize it in a way that it needs to. So not everybody's going to have that same experience. Some people are going to have the experience of putting more weight on because it goes back to who we are and what we know about our bodies. Some people are triggered by the scale. Other people feel safety around knowing. I think the question is, how do you handle people around the scale? And I say, let's talk about your relationship to it. How are we using this information? How is it going to benefit us? How are we going to, if you're on a medication that makes you lose weight really quick, the scale is important for us to make sure you're not losing muscle. If you're just somebody who's trying to beat the number, then it's at a loss because the more you're in the gym, the less you're going to see that you're not going to be able to beat that number, right? If it's a static number because we're gaining muscle. So, I always joke around, if I ever write a book, it's going to be called It Depends because it's so individualized. But yet I do think the one thing that's not is that I've never met a human who gets worse or more unhealthy by becoming more self-aware. It is our superpower. The more you can truly, and not like BS understand about yourself, but like call out your own stuff. Know your own pain.
Yeah.
Acknowledge your weaknesses and your insecurities and all the things. That is your superpower.
That, it's funny you say that because just like I said before, writing down this manifestation for 2025, I had to put a category of all the things that I think I'm good at and then be honest with myself and be like, all right, the things that, and I'm like, oh shit. You start to I'm like, I want to hide in my own apartment.
It's brutal when you
have to face your.
But I remember that. Like, I think about the things that I really struggle at, and I'm like, Jaime, the way you feel about this is how the people coming to you feel about their weight or about their gut health or about, right? So like empathy in that moment for myself and for them, right? Like I remember when someone comes to me frustrated about their relationship to the scale is the same way that I feel when I'm struggling in my relationship to my own insecurities or, inabilities. We have to remember that. We have to check into that. When you're training a client, I'm sure there are some times where you have to dig deep to really meet them where they are and just, yell like, come on, you could do this. Might not be it for them that day. You might have to be like, bro, what's going on? Right. I bet you change a little bit about how you have to work with people.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely, you got to read the room a little bit when it comes to certain people.
I just want everyone to read their own room.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we're reading too many other people's. We're not reading our own.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. As far as, because I know a lot of people out there are going to be like, well, you didn't ask her about what she thinks of GLP-1s and Ozempics and things like that.
I'll answer it right now.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the greatest tools that medicine has ever invented.
You think so?
I also think it's one of the most powerful demons that we have. It is as much an amazing tool as it is a serious drug of danger.
We could chalk that up for everything that's great. Social media, everything. So,
I think
it's great as a catalyst for people to kickstart getting into good habits, feeling better. But I think when people become dependent on it, it becomes a problem.
I have a little bit of a different opinion. I think that the idea of using it just as a tool to jumpstart something is more of a problem. Because it's too easy to not do the things you need to do and just lose the weight on it. So I see a lot of people who are like, I'm just gonna use it to help me get to. And I'm like, this is a long-term commitment. You don't get on and off of this.
Yeah, but I think when people are like, oh, I want to get down to this weight, so I'll use it for a while. I think I've seen so many people start to feel really good on it. And they're like, oh man, I could do this what if I implement all these other good habits with this? So I feel like it depends on the person, like you said. I mean,
it does. I have a lot of people who get on it, don't eat, don't exercise, and they're losing weight, and they reward themselves with, like this is great, I'm doing good. And it's like, well, that's not the way to use the medicine. And I have other people who get on it and it's the first time in their life that they are eating healthy in the gym. And I think that it's powerful. I think skinny is power. I think skinny is dangerous. I think skinny is a drug. I think there's a lot of, draw to this idea of, and I use the word skinny for weight loss. And I think that if we're not really careful about educating people on what that looks like, it's dangerous. I think people are on and off of it. They don't feel great when they've been on it for a long time if they're not doing things the right way. I have patients who've lost 150 pounds. They've never been able to be under 300 pounds, and their life is forever changed because of this brilliant medicine. And I have other people who have struggled with eating disorders their whole life, got on this medication, and now they're just feeding their eating disorder like wildfire, right? So it's all over the place. And I think that for the right person, it's life-changing. I think that it's also in the hands of too many people who are just like, I'm going to get on it to lose 10 pounds, and then I'm going to get off it. And then they're off, and then they get back on, and then they're off. It's golden handcuffs.
Yeah. No, I think for certain people, I think it's scary. But I've seen a lot of people who I know have tried and struggled because people think it's easy. As someone who used to be bigger, and I kind of always struggle with it, and I have to really dial my shit. That level of discipline that I had to get to this point has really helped me out a lot. But at the same time, I know there's a lot of people out there who struggle with it, that this got them to a point where they're like, they've never felt better.
Exactly.
And when we were talking about the Botox and stuff, like for a while I was like shamed. I'm like, oh God, I shouldn't do this. I had a client of mine who was always like, dude, you look like shit. You should get Botox. I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that shit. I don't need it. And then when I did it, the last time I got it, which was probably like 2-3 weeks ago, I was like, fuck, I feel better on this. I like not having wrinkles in my fucking forehead.
But you know what you did? You turned inwards.
Yeah.
You figured out what felt good for you.
I was like, I don't give a shit what anybody else thinks about my head not moving. I'm happy with it. My head doesn't move.
Neither does mine. And I love my Botox, and I'm never giving it up, right? And I'm never going to... The other piece of that, this is another conversation for another day, is the authenticity of it, right? One of my biggest issues with GLPs, and I get it, I really do, because this is the industry I'm in, is not acknowledging that they're on it. The people who are on Instagram, like, oh, I diet and exercise and I finally lost the weight. Like, no, you also used this tool, which is great and it's amazing and I love it. But if we're not transparent in the world around these things, we get into a space that's really gray.
Well, that's dangerous. And that's why I tell everybody, like, hey, I'm on testosterone. Yeah. And I love being open about it because I know there's other people out there who are like, what should I do?
It takes the shame away.
Yeah.
If we want to stop being so shameful, we have to talk about it, right? I use Botox in my forehead and I love it. And I hope I can do it for the rest of my life.
Yeah, me too.
But so I'm not anti-GLP or pro-GLP for across the board. I am, who are you? Sit down on this couch with me for 10 minutes and I'll tell you what I think our next best step is.
Yeah, I think I think that wraps everything up in a nice little package. Dr. Jaime, where could everybody find you?
Social media is my name. And actually, I have an exciting announcement.
What?
This is the first time I'm ever saying this out loud.
What?
I actually have a book coming out.
No shit. Wait, who do you use for publishing?
I'll tell you when we're...
Okay.
So I do a series on Instagram called What's the Deal?
Okay.
And it was turned into an ebook.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Because people can't scroll through Instagram for 3 years worth of data trying to find something on chlorophyll. So now it will live on an ebook for now.
That's awesome. Okay.
And
where that's on
my
Instagram.
website.
Okay.
Yeah, and on Instagram.
Yeah.
So people will be able to read all about GLPs and about Ozempic and about cookies and weight loss and metabolism and NEAT and metabolic flexibility.
Well, I hope this conversation helped some people out there. Even if it helps one person,
we had fun.
Yeah.
It helped us.
No, this was great.
Look, two people that feel better for the...
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Guys, check out Dr. Jaime's book, Dr. Jaime Schehr, on Instagram. And if you don't know her husband, Isaiah,
Oh my God.
this is a call out to him because I love that guy so damn much. I love him.
Always.
And I know
Everyone's
he's
always
got,
like, "And her husband."
I know he's going to listen to this and be like, you only mentioned me once. I mentioned you twice.
In the beginning and the end. I don't know if it gets better than that.
Yeah. So I got a lot of love for that guy. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Like, subscribe, share with a friend, please, because we're trying to blow this.
We got to build it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.